boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The official word from World Boxing Council President Mauricio Suleiman as it pertains to a proposed fight between Canada's Caroline Veyre and Belgium's own former champion Delphine Persoon. Mauricio said, "We're happy to confirm that an agreement has been reached between the parties for the vacant WBC super featherweight title. Consequently, the purse offer ceremony has been cancelled earlier this week." There was supposed to be a purse bid for the fight. They called it off because they reached a deal. Caroline Veyre sports a professional record of 10 wins with 1 loss and no draws, no recorded knockouts, having never been knocked out in 11 professional bouts. Currently promoted by Dimitri Salita, who up until this point has been the career-long promoter for the likes of Clarissa Shields. He is now promoting Caroline Veyre, and I suspect that he will be the head promoter at the helm of this promotion. He'll bring it to America. This fight between Caroline and Delphine Persoon, who sports a professional record of 50 wins with 3 losses and no draws, 20 knockouts, having only ever been knocked out once in 53 professional bouts. 55, really, as Delphine Persoon has racked up 2 no contests in her career. Here in the twilight of it, she was last in action in June of this year opposite the ring Anna Maria Lozano. It's the only fight that she had this year. Only lasted about 6 rounds before Delphine forced a stoppage. Before that, she was last in action in September of last year opposite the ring Alicia Baumgartner, what resulted in a no contest in a fight that Alicia was well on her way to winning, well on her way to stopping Delphine Persoon. But the contest was ended early due to what I believe was a clash of heads in the 4th round, and thus it was labeled a no contest. Delphine Persoon, a common opponent between Caroline and Alicia. They're fighting for Alicia's old WBC title as a result of Alicia vacating it so she can fight for 3-minute rounds instead of the customary 2-minute rounds women box for. You know, the WBC is vehemently against women boxing for 3-minute rounds. They won't sanction a women's boxing match for 3-minute rounds, and as a result, Alicia decided to drop that belt. So now it's on the line in this fight between Caroline and Delphine. Caroline was last in action in July of this year opposite the ring Licia Budersa, who she decisioned. She actually saw action 2 times this year, once in February, then again in July. Currently on a 3-fight winning streak since having dropped a decision to Joanna Lopez in September of last year. So she's fought 3 times since then and won 3 times since then. There was a time when Delphine Persoon, Caroline is going to beat her, was one of the most fearsome punchers, not just anywhere at or around these weights, but in the entire sport of women's boxing. There was a time, but I think that time has since passed. Delphine Persoon is not the same fighter that she used to be, and why would she? She's in her early 40s, sparsely active, getting older. There was a time where I would have favored a Delphine Persoon to beat a Caroline Veyre, but as stated, that time has since passed, and I think that because Caroline is younger, fresher, and sharper, she will win a decision. Her first crack at the apple, her first world title opportunity. Caroline Veyre used to be based out of Canada under Yvonne Michel Promotions alongside Marie-Pierre Huel, Kim Clavel, Marie-Eve Dicaire, those Canadian-based women boxers. Caroline used to compete alongside them, but very recently she decided to change her decorum, and I believe that she's based out of America now, promoted by American promoter Dimitri Salita. And I believe that he will be the one at the helm of this promotion, which means Caroline will be the house fighter. Not only that, she hasn't just changed her decorum in terms of promotion, in terms of training, she's done that as well. I believe that she's based out of the United States, training here in America. She's a different fighter now from when I first saw her. When I first saw her, she was more of a fence and fiddle kind of fighter. Mover, jabber, that kind of fighter. Now, she's a bit more aggressive, sitting on her punches more, landing harder, with authority. I think she beats Delphine when the time comes.
Yeah, man. I be hearing some of these niggas, man. It just be the hate. But sometimes you be like, you niggas ain't never went through nothing with no females, bro. And you niggas know females try to provoke you, bro. So,
bro, you about to defend this shit? This like his 100th time. Bro, this is 100th time.
Bro, can I get my shit off?
Hell no, man. Get the fuck out of here.
What are you talking about,
You need a sister in your life, man. Fuck wrong with you?
I like how Nesta Gibbs handled that situation. Some people think that because they've got something to say, it deserves to be heard.
That we should hear it. That we should entertain it.
No, we shouldn't. Anyone going up to bat for Gervonta Davis at this point is essentially defending his right to be a serial domestic abuser, as this is not an isolated incident. This is not the first time, the second, the third, the fourth, or the fifth.
It's more like the 10th.
I can think of 10 separate incidents, all involving Gervonta Davis putting his hand on some broad. Just off the top of my head, it's probably more than that.
Oh yeah, these are just the ones that got reported. These are just the ones that made the news. By now, this is pattern behavior and a prevalent theme in the career of Gervonta Davis, to where if you're going up to bat for this guy, you're defending him. What exactly are you defending?
Degeneracy. Degenerates are the only kind of people that Gervonta Davis appeals to. Degenerates or wannabe degenerates.
So when your core supporters are primarily comprised of degenerates and their degeneracy, how are you supposed to get far? How are you supposed to cross over into the mainstream? You can't. Pay attention to what the caller was trying to say, because he wasn't even denying that Gervonta Davis might have struck this woman and did all the stuff that she says he did. He wasn't trying to deny it so much as defend it, that somehow it might have been her fault.
Because it's never his fault, right?
Right.
Whatever he does, he's innocent in your eyes. So the blame must be hers. Somehow you've worked it out in your head to where this is really her fault, even though you don't have all the facts.
And neither do I. I don't have them either, but what I do know is this is not an isolated incident. I need two hands to count how many times Gervonta Davis has got in trouble for the same fucking thing. So I ask again, what are you defending?
Birds of a feather flock together. You defend his degeneracy because you're a degenerate yourself. That's what you come from. It's how you were raised. The failure of your mother.
I'm not even gonna bring up your father because you probably don't even know who he is. I don't think anybody taught you how to be a man. I don't think anybody taught Gervonta Davis either, which is why he is emotional. Emotional, erratic.
He behaves like a woman. He has the temperament of a woman because what he emulates is a woman. What he emulates is his mother.
Can't fucking tell when he's putting on pink minks and wearing purses and wearing nail polish.
You think he's trying to emulate? What do you think he's doing when he's hugged up with Adrian Bronor in the club and they're blowing kisses at each other?
Shit gets you hot.
Is this what you're defending? This kind of behavior from Gervonta Davis? I definitely say it is, because there is a homoerotic fixation between these guys. They really like Gervonta Davis. It's got fuck all to do with boxing, his boxing career, pugilism.
They're just gay.
Gervonta Davis's core supporters are best described as a cross between loving hip-hop fans, loving hip-hop culture, and some boxing. And what you find about a lot of those guys, well, a lot of those guys are closet cases.
Those guys take it in the ass, man.
Like a lot of those famous rappers that they like so much. Got punched in the brown just to get a record deal. That kind of shit. It's the kind of shit they're into. It's the kind of shit they want to get into with Gervonta.
Ew.
Very strange people with very strange proclivities. Best to not mince words with them and waste your brain cells. Waste your fucking time.
Don't let him. Nesta Gibbs didn't. When that guy tried to make a case how somehow this is her fault and not Gervonta's, even though there are at least 10 prior incidents just like this one that tell the story. It should.
Come on, bro. You talk with the female, they there's problems with the female.
Sounds like a cross between Elmer Fudd and Prodigy of Mobb Deep. These are little boys. These are not men. Can't expect them to make grown-up decisions. Like, sometimes these females might be the provocateurs, but you as a man have to keep your composure. It's what it is to be a man, doing things that are difficult.
You wouldn't understand that.
Because you're not a man. Just a little boy in an adult's body. Got a little boy's brain. That's why you are the way you are.
You know, I've got to be honest with you. I think Jarrell Miller is a problem for the heavyweights out there. I think...
Sounds like Eddie Hearn saying Jarrell Miller.
I think he's a massive character and personality. I think he's a very, very tough guy to beat when he's fit. And I think he can seriously fight. I'm just saying that I wouldn't rule out necessarily working with him in the future. And I've always thought that would be an impossibility, but time is a good healer. I think he's a problem. I think, like, tell me a guy that he wouldn't be a problem for in the top 5 in the heavyweight division. Fit. If he gets with the right guy, and I think Bosey could be that guy. I think he's a problem for a lot of the guys out there.
Eddie Hearn said that after all these years, he would not rule out working with Jarrell Miller. After that whole fiasco with Anthony Joshua, the fight that Jarrell Miller ruined in New York at Madison Square Garden, which was a long time ago.
And remember that he tested positive for a bunch of banned substances after that.
Eddie Hearn is entertaining the possibility that he might work with Jarrell Miller again, likely because he's about to. Can't be a coincidence that Eddie Hearn said this at a time where Jarrell Miller was ringside for a Matchroom show.
Big hungry.
So first, let's evaluate what Eddie Hearn said. Is there any truth to it?
Is Jarrell Miller a handful? Is he a problem for a lot of heavyweights out there? I would say that he is. Even in defeat, he's shown a lot of durability. He's shown persistence.
He's only got one recorded loss. The loss to Danny Boy, Daniel Dubois. Daniel really had to beat the shit out of him. To force that stoppage, he really had to fuck him up. Daniel is one of the established fighters in the heavyweight division. He's not just some Joe Blow, not just some nobody, and thus, you gotta be at least halfway good to beat this guy. You've got to at least be decent to beat Big Gravy.
Big baby.
Big Gravy!
Big hungry.
Talking about a guy, 6'4", near 6'5", weighing in over 300 pounds a lot of the time, barreling forward, crashing the pocket, crowding you, throwing punches and bunches, and even if they are arm punches, he throws a lot of them.
Big hungry.
Ringside yesterday for Pero versus Thompson, as Lanier Pero sets his sights on controversial heavyweight Jarrell Miller after the Jordan Thompson win.
And what was a Matchroom show down there in Florida.
Lanier Pero of Cuba stumbled closer to the top level last night, outpointing Jordan Thompson over 10 rounds in Florida. Afterwards, El Justiciero, the Justifier, said he showed why he was highly ranked by the WBA, beating a rusty visitor moved him up the rankings, but failed to move any needles when it comes to fan excitement. I think what I showed tonight in boxing is that you can always improve on things, but what I showed tonight is that I can improve on things. Also, I managed the 3 different ranges really well, and I think that's what was on display for me tonight, he said through an interpreter. Faced with a young, robust specimen moving up from cruiser to heavyweight.
You know what's funny? Jordan Thompson is the one who was moving up from cruiser up to heavy, but Lanier's the one who looked like a cruiser. This is a noticeably small heavyweight for today's heavyweight division, Lanier Pero.
I would say that he does hit hard, but I want to say also that his combinations were quite repetitive, so when that happens, there aren't many options for him to go through. I thought it was a competitive fight, with Thompson suitably dismissed and a piece of the WBA title slung across the shoulder. Pero turned his attention to the next test that arrived in the portly Jarrell Miller. Big baby.
Big Gravy!
Who is pitching his services to anybody who will listen. Jarrell Miller, come inside the ring. I'm ready for whatever you want, invited Pero. While Miller is undeniably a character who can sell fights, his dodgy past can only be excused in a forgiving sport like boxing, where cash is king and morals are flexible, where Big Baby is not. Listen, man, you know I don't run from nobody, warbled Miller. So I'll cook him. I'll turn him into a Cuban sandwich real quick. DAZN, Eddie, sign this boy up for an ass whooping. I think Beto's performance was good. He did what he had to do. But if it was me, I'd have laid him out in 2 or 3 rounds. But like I said, a win is a win. This is boxing. Anything can happen. He got the win and God bless him. But when he fights me, I'm smoking him. Once Miller had exited the ring, no doubt plotting his next fight to a fight town near you, causing more mischief, Beto offered a subtly brilliant take on Jarrell's antics. He needs to start fighting people. He needs to make sure these fights don't keep falling through. We see each other in Miami occasionally. I'm giving you the opportunity. Let's do it.
Why did Jarrell Miller's fights keep falling through? I think about 2 or 3 fights fell through back-to-back for him. Why was that happening?
Dimitri Salita! He was with him for a while. They had a promotional dispute that I think by now it's been settled, and Jarrell is free to move on.
Okay, well, why is Lanier Pero willing to fight him? Explain that. Why would he afford an opportunity to him, as he stated, when Jarrell Miller is not a champion?
Because for Lanier Pero, a guy like Jarrell Miller is a step up. Likely would get him more money than he made so far. Likely would get him more money than he made this weekend boxing Jordan Thompson. Money is the short answer.
Money from who? You just said that Jarrell's not with Dimitri Salita, so who's gonna put the money up?
Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn, who did not rule out working with Jarrell Miller, in the future. And I don't think it was a coincidence that Jarrell Miller was ringside during a Matchroom show. Eddie said that time is the ultimate healer. Are we to interpret this as him softening his stance on Jarrell Miller? I would say yes. In the past, Eddie has had some choice words for Jarrell.
Does this make Eddie a hypocrite?
To young Rico, friend of the channel, it does. He said, if Eddie has him on a show, I don't ever want to hear him complain about drug cheats ever again.
Well, Rico, it would have been a long time since you heard Eddie Hearn complain about drug cheats in the sport of boxing in the subsequent 2 years that followed his boy Conor Benn's doping fiasco. He defended him all 2 years that followed that situation. So I don't think he's about to take a hardline stance when it comes to this one, when it comes to Jarrell Miller. You can't stand on a pulpit defending Conor Benn against doping allegations and simultaneously stand on that same pulpit to vilify Jarrell.
It's a bit more than allegations. They found banned substances in Conor's system. It's not an allegation, it's fact.
That fact is why Eddie Hearn has softened his stance on this issue over the years, to where now he's willing to work with someone who tested positive for a banned substance because that didn't stop him from working with Conor. Moreover, it didn't stop any of you from watching that same Conor Benn fight Chris Eubank Jr., and it's not going to stop you from watching their rematch. We're all complicit, varying degrees. We're all enablers in our own way. I'm just indifferent. I'm willing to acknowledge that I don't care that much. If the guys taking the punches don't care, why should I?
Did Jarrell Miller's dodgy past stop Daniel Dubois from fighting him? Or Andy Ruiz? Did it stop Lanier Pero from entertaining a fight with him? No, it didn't. And they're the ones got to deal with the brunt of it, the consequences. If they don't care, why should I?
Why should Eddie?
In a sport where the most high-profile of high-profile fighters have tested positive for banned substances, anyone from Canelo Alvarez to Tyson Fury, their doping fiascos did not stop me from watching any of Canelo's fights, didn't stop me from watching Fury's, didn't stop you guys.
Not stand on ceremony. Yeah. Mr. Wayne.
Because Eddie Hearn has softened his stance and all of a sudden found use for a Jarrell Miller in the Matchroom stable, I've long maintained that whether you like Jarrell Miller or not, he is a character. He is outspoken. He knows how to sell a fight, and it also helps that he is durable. You gotta beat the fuck out of this guy to beat him. Guy like that comes in handy. You might want to keep a guy like that around. If other fighters that have tested positive for banned substances have been allowed to resume their careers,
Why shouldn't Jarrell?
Eddie Hearn has a plan for the American boxing scene. He sees an area of opportunity now that his biggest competition is in a weakened state. And I'm talking about the PBC. I'm talking about Top Rank, to where now cornering the market in America might be easier than it was a few years ago when Eddie debuted here. And a guy like Jarrell Miller, in that situation, might come in handy.
Because he's from New York, because he's from Brooklyn, you could do shows at the Barclays Center, at the Hulu Theater. You could do shows on the East Coast. You could put him on Boots Ennis's undercard. You know that he mentioned Bozy training him.
Is that going to be the situation? What is this really about? Am I against Jarrell Miller's resurgence in the sport of boxing? No, I'm not. I'm indifferent.
Other guys got to come back and make money. Why shouldn't he?